In this video, we're going to take a deep dive into the Gskyer 130 EQ Newtonian reflector telescope. This is going to be a rather detailed and lengthy review, point out all the good things and all the warts. So stay tuned. Let's take a look. Welcome back. This is going to be a little bit more of a deep dive review video, and I want to start off by talking about the accessories and stuff that come with it. So let's jump right into that. First things, obviously we've got a standard dovetail finder scope. Nothing special, but it does its job fairly well. It's got a spring-loaded clip here. It's got two black adjustment knobs that are plastic but do fairly well, that adjust this so that it will line up with this. So you look through here and yeah, works fine. You can replace this with a pretty much any standard finder scope, whether it's red dot or a bigger one or a 90 degree or whatever. This one works fine though. The focuser on this is a single speed. It too does its job fairly well. It's a little light of a touch for me, but other than that, it does a pretty good job. The extension tube here is marked, so if you know where your focus is with a specific eyepiece or a camera, you can go back to that fairly quickly. It comes with a bolt right here on the bottom that you can use to lock the focus in. So once you get it where you want it, you can tighten this up a little bit, and now the knobs do nothing. So that's kind of a nice little feature, so you don't bump it and knock that out. Eyepieces. First eyepiece is a Gskyer branded 25mm. It is nothing special, but it's not too bad. 25mm eyepiece, it's kind of hard to mess up. I've got better ones, but this one does its job pretty well. It does appear to be threaded on the inside for interior filters. The top has a ridge around it that is used for the nifty little phone holder. Now, in my other videos I've talked about this. I have a love-hate relationship with this phone holder. The love part of it is when it is assembled correctly on the eyepieces that come with this setup, it is a bang-up, nice phone holder. It holds everything nice and rock solid. The problem here is it only works with the Gskyer eyepieces that come with this. And the reason for that is that ridge I was just telling you about. So you will note that all the eyepieces that this telescope come with have this ridge right here. And speaking of which, it comes with three eyepieces, the 25 we were just playing with, a 10, and a 5. Now, where I live, the skies are reasonable. I'm not in the middle of a big town, but I'm not out in the middle of the boonies either. So the 25 gets me great views. The 10, okay. The 5 I found fairly useless. I can't really get a good enough view with this to worry about. So it also comes with a 3x Barlow lens. Little bitty plastic, cheapy. Yeah, this should go immediately into the garbage. If you take your 25 and you put the 3x Barlow on there, the views are, not only does it give you 3x magnification, which gets you about a 6-ish millimeter or a 5-ish. Yeah, about a 6-ish. So, you know, we're back to the 5mm I can't get good views out of, so using the 3x Barlow. But it's actually worse because of the really crummy lens that's in this thing, in the Barlow, which makes it even worse. So you're much better off trying the 5mm if you really want something, and just get rid of this Barlow. The Barlow on the 10 or the 5 is just a joke. If you want to see what something totally out of focus looks like, there you go. So we talked about the phone holder. With the phone holder, they send a little remote. At first I thought this was kind of gimmicky, and then I actually hooked it up and used it, and it works really well. So you pair it as a Bluetooth device to your phone, tablet, whatever. In this case, you're not going to put a tablet on this, so put your phone in there. You pair this to it. Then when you open up the camera app and you press the little button, it takes a picture. Really nice, because one of the things you really want to avoid with any telescope, this one in particular, and you'll find out why later, is touching the phone. Because if you touch it, that little bit of vibration is going to be amplified in the telescope and make your image really blurry. Now, what some people do to get past that is they turn the timer feature on and tell it to take a picture in 10 seconds. You press the button, that gives it 10 seconds to calm down and then take the picture. That does work. This works better. So keep that in mind. It also comes with an erecting eyepiece. Now, what this does basically is this turns the image around so that you can use this like during the day to, I would say birding, but this is a little overpowering for birding. But, you know, if you live near a lake or something like that, and you want to look across the lake or look at a boat or something like that, then this keeps the view from being, you know, upside down backwards. So that's nice. The other things it comes with, of course, comes with 2 slow motion controls. It comes with 2 weights. I believe these are 5-pound weights. I'll have to measure that, but it comes with 2 weights, and you really need both of them on there, especially if you're going to attach anything to it. For example, right here is I think it's a 1/4 by 20 thread for a camera. Now, I found this a little amusing because if you put a camera right here, you know, okay, so now you kind of sort of got to take that off. Fortunately, that's real easy to do. So basically, you thread your camera down when it's pointed up. You run this little wheel up to meet the bottom to tighten it so that your camera can sit there and you can take a picture. Now, that's usually very useful for things like when the telescope is tracking an object, like the moon. You could put a camera on here and let it follow the tracking of the telescope. But this telescope doesn't track. So I find this a little odd. But that's okay. The rings that you have here that hold the... let me get this off here. The rings that hold the telescope on, both of these are threaded, but only one of them has the threaded bolt to put the camera on. So I'm guessing you could put another one back here, or like I did with one of my telescopes, I put a rail on top so that I could attach other stuff to it. I'm not sure why you'd want to do it with this telescope, but you know, you have options. So it also comes with eyepiece tray. It's plastic, but it's pretty good plastic. It locks in, twists, and so it's really easy to put in. There's no bolts, there's no screws, so that works really well. And it's thick enough and sturdy enough feeling that I think this might last a while. Some of them, you know, you feel it and you go, okay, yeah, next year this won't be here. This one I think might. All of the eyepieces come in cases. The cases don't really stick together too well, but they do work. So eyepiece in the case, that helps protect them and keep them from getting banged up, scratched up, all that kind of good stuff. Next thing is it comes with Quick Start Guide. The Quick Start Guide, they call it a quick setup guide. And it's actually, however, the inside portion of this is, I'm guessing, Chinese. I can't read it. Yeah, I'm going to say it's Chinese. The other 2 sides that are folded out are English. And they go through the basic assembly process for the telescope. What they don't go through is anything like leveling and balancing and any of that stuff, which is interesting since this is an EQ mount. That's okay. Got a video for that. Check it out. So one thing they should have included that they did not was a laser collimator. That would be a device that goes in here, shines a laser beam down, back up, and shows you how far off the mirrors are, because the back has adjustment knobs that are really easy to use for collimating the telescope. This one came very out of collimation, but it was very easy to collimate. Since I have a laser collimator, I put it in there, 2 minutes later, boom, done. I like the front cover. Front cover fits really well. It's made out of pretty good plastic too. I don't know, how well it's going to last over the long term, but I think the plastic is strong enough and feels good enough that it ought to last quite a while. And it also has a cap with a hole that lets you stop the telescope down to get sharper images that are darker. Very useful for looking at the moon, and with an appropriate solar filter, very good for observing the sun. One thing I pointed out in some of my other videos on this scope is quality control is a little lacking. So be sure you tighten every little bolt that you can get your hands on and inspect the telescope really well when you get it out of the box and start to set it up. You want to make sure that, I've seen reports of the spider vanes, which are in the front here, you have a crossed set of little metal pieces. I've seen that those have been bent. Mine are not, mine are fine. But that is something to make sure you check. Something else when you're pulling it out of the box is make sure that you take the tube and ring assembly out of the box very carefully. One of my rings was completely unscrewed and the other one was mostly unscrewed. So when I grabbed the rail to pull the assembly out, it was very close to the telescope falling. So make sure you don't just grab the rail and yank it out, because these are probably not tight. So pull the whole piece out as one, make sure that those are then snugged, and then you can move it around by the rail. So other than that, of course, you get the telescope tube, the rings, the rail that attaches it to the mount, which is, all of this and down, and then the leg portion, which the legs are extremely stable. But we'll talk more about that in the next part of this video. But I just wanted to go quickly through what's included and, talk about this piece first. Next, we're going to talk about how it works actually out in the field. So we've taken a look at this scope inside, seen the accessories, seen how it all goes together and all of that. What we don't know is how does it perform actually outside when you go to view things. And like most telescopes in this price range, that's a mixed bag. So let's start with the stuff on the ground and work our way up. So the tripod itself, I like this tripod. For the price, this thing is very sturdy. The only complaints I have about it are going to be the pieces here where you tighten everything is a metal pin or a metal thread going through plastic. I'm a little concerned at how that's going to hold up over time, but it seems to work now. The big thing is don't over tighten it. Tighten it enough that everything's stable, but don't go so tight that you're going to strip the plastic or break it. I would be careful of that. The tray works really well. I like how it just clicks in, boom, done. That's nice. It's good plastic. You got plenty of room here to put stuff. The only gripe I may have with this is there's nothing to stop your eyepieces from just rolling around, but that's very, very minor. But the tray overall is nice. It has a good lip on it, so they're not going to fall out on the ground or anything. So moving up to the bottom of the mount, you've got a nice big knob here that tightens up and holds the mount to the tripod really well. The mount itself is, of course, mostly metal, and I really like that. Most of the stuff, you've got plastic where it all holds together in some places, but the mount itself, which is fairly critical, is metal. Everything is easy to get to, easy to read. The two weights slide really well. I don't like the fact, if you've watched any of my other videos on this, that the knobs in the weights don't go all the way through to the bar. They're very short, and then there is a piece of aluminum rod that slides in there. And I'm not a big fan of that because the aluminum rod's too easy to lose. Anyway, and it can make getting the rod into the weights a challenge. But once it's assembled, that's fine, no big deal. The mount has some other issues. And for a mount that looks this good and is mostly metal, it was rather surprising. One of the issues is the knobs that are supposed to lock everything down, okay, that's as tight as I can get it without going and getting a pair of pliers. And yet I can still turn it quite easily. And when I say quite easily, this is locked as tight as I can get it. Take my pinky, grab this. Okay, I should not be able to do that. And that works the other way too. If I rotate the mount so you can see what I'm talking about, on this side, you've got this knob. If I tighten the mount back up, this knob, when loose, allows the mount to do this. Okay? So now I tighten it, and I tighten it about as tight as I dare. And again, pinky on the top of this bolt. Pinky here. Well, let's do pinky there. So the knobs that are supposed to hold everything where it is don't really work that well. And that really surprises me, considering how much metal there is in this thing. I don't honestly know what's causing that. But what I can tell you is, doing a little research online, it's not just this telescope. It's, and by that I don't mean this specific telescope. There are several people that have the Gskyer 130 EQ and have the same problem, and I even ran into some people online that have the refractor version with the same mount, same problem. So I'm not overly thrilled with that. Something else I'm not thrilled with as far as the mount goes is tighten everything down. The scope has an awful lot of wobble. And that too is surprising. But that all comes back down to a problem with the mount. Now, I want to be fair in this. That problem is not going to stop the average beginner who buys this telescope off Amazon, takes it out, and uses it to look at Saturn and Jupiter and the Orion Nebula and that kind of stuff. It's not really going to affect them at all. But it is something that I think people should be aware of, because if you were to get a Celestron model of this, for example, that had a mount that looks similar to this, or even a smaller mount, the mount is going to be much more stable than this. And I just picked Celestron off the top of my head. Orion makes excellent mounts too. I've got an Orion 90mm that's got a mount smaller than this that's got to be at least twice as good as this. It has virtually none of this wobble. When I tighten it down, you can make it move, but you've got to put some muscle in it. In fact, when I do this, which I can do with the pinky, my Orion 90mm, if I've got everything torqued down and I put my pinky here, it's not moving. It will tilt the entire mount over before it lets go. Again, that's not going to affect the average person who's going to be buying this telescope. But I put it in here and I stress it so that you know that other telescopes from big name brands won't have that same issue. So if that is an issue to you, then you may want to consider it. But again, regular beginner, no problem. Okay, so moving up to the optical tube itself. I already mentioned that the tripod legs I liked for the price. They're very good, very stable. I like that. The tube is the same way. For the price, I'm very impressed on the tube. The mirrors seem quite good. The focuser, I've talked about, I didn't really like the light touch in the focuser, but it works really well. The eyepieces, all telescopes that come with eyepieces pretty much, the eyepieces are passable at best. This one's no exception. I reached out and got me a nice eyepiece out of my kit, put it in there. The views were great. Views aren't too bad with these eyepieces, but much better with a good eyepiece. And I've got some recommendations I'll link below. The one thing that did kind of disappoint me for the optical tube was the collimation was way off. And my guess is they didn't really collimate it at the factory, and shipping probably didn't help. But I have a laser collimator, and if you don't have one, they're cheap. Get you one. I'll put a link to that down below too. But the laser collimator, once I put it on here, I was done in less than 5 minutes. It was collimated. The views improved dramatically. So once it's collimated, once the finder scope is lined up, once you have a decent eyepiece, and once all of this stuff is said and done, can you get good views out of this telescope? And the answer is absolutely yes. As I said, the mirrors seem fine. I don't have a problem with them. They are every bit as good as the other reflectors in this price range that I have looked at. I don't know that they're any better, but they're certainly not any worse. They are definitely on par with the scopes from Celestron and Orion and Meade that are in this price range. The only place that I'm going to say Celestron, Orion, and Meade in this price range will outperform it is probably the mount, assuming you get one with an equatorial mount. If you get some of the, Celestron's got one that's more expensive than this, but it's on an alt-as mount, which works, but it's not one of my favorites. So, anyway, those are all the things I do and don't like about the scope. It performs well for a roughly, at this time, $350 scope. If you're looking at getting one, fantastic. This is not an astrophotography rig, but for visual stuff and for short exposure stuff, it will do a bang-up job. I do highly recommend the laser collimator, but that's, I think, the one I was looking at online that I'll leave a link to is like $25. That's a heck of an investment. So that, I'm going to say, is kind of a requirement. New eyepieces, if you plan on using this for any length of time, you plan on doing anything with it other than, view it a few times and hand it down to your kids or whatever, eyepiece upgrade is absolutely worth it. And you could even get some adapters to hook it to a bigger camera and get some pretty good images out of it. But overall, I like it for the price. It does have a few little niggles, but other than that, it's pretty good. If you have any questions, comments, or anything, down below, be sure you subscribe to get more information like this, and clear skies.